Very good morning. In today's session on Business as Lab, we'll be talking about Pearson correlation. Now, if you're talking about Pearson correlation, we are basically talking about small r. The small r is also known as correlation coefficient, and it measures the degree of linear relationship between these two variables, and the two variables have to be in scale form. So the value of small r, which can be, you can say, positive, and it can be, you can say, very high till being +1 to, you can say, going lower down till somewhat, you can say, on the positive side, but and more than 0, it is, you can say, positive correlation. But as we are moving from 1 to maybe, you can say, zero point 0.1, we are, you can say, actually, you can say, having lesser amount of positive relationship. When this correlation value or R happens to be 0, we mean it means that we are not having any correlation, you can say, between the two variables. And in case, you can say, the values are in negative, moving from a little negative, you can say, from 0, like minus 0.01 till -1, it is supposed to be negative relationship. And this negative relationship will be, you can say, increasing if we are, you can say, moving towards -1. So correlation, if you actually look at, you can say is taken up between two variables, and the values can be between +1 to -1, and 0 being the neutral point where there is no correlation actually existing. And let's have an example to understand correlation. For a research project, we have a student who is just to examine whether there was a relationship between meaning in life and psychological well-being. So we have 30 students who have agreed to participate in the study, and they were being administered a meaning in life scale and measure of psychological well-being. So the scores of meaning in life scale range from 10 to 70, and higher scores are indicating greater meaning in life, and the well-being scale ranged from 5 to 35, again with higher scores indicating greater well-being. So that's the example. And if you are actually looking at, you can see the objective of Pearson correlation, we are talking on the linear relationship between the two variables, which means that if one variable increases, the other variable will also increase. There can be another possibility that there is no effect of one variable on the other, or there can be something else happening. That is, if one variable increases, the other variable simultaneously decreases. So we have to just see that whether this linear relationship is existing or not between the two variables. Now, data requirement. So we have got two continuous variables. And if you look at, you can say the variables which we have got for this example, variable 1 is meaning of life, and variable 2 is well-being variable. Now, coming to hypothesis. When we are talking of hypothesis, and we are talking of null and alternate hypothesis here, so the null hypothesis will always say that rho is equal to 0. This means that there is no correlation between the two continuous variables. Now rho, which is given by the letter quite similar to small p, it's a Greek alphabet, and it's pronounced as rho. So rho is equal to 0 basically means that there is no, you can say, correlation there between the two continuous variables. But in case you can say if rho is not equal to 0, it is alternate hypothesis, supposing that there is some type of positive or negative relationship between the two variables. And to actually, you can say, accept the alternate hypothesis, if the value of small p, that is significance, happens to be 0.05 or less than that, we know we are accepting the alternate hypothesis. Now, in this example of ours, where we are talking about a student who is examining, you can say, the relationship between meaning of life and psychological well-being, where 30 students have participated in that study, and in that case, the research question will be that is there a relationship between meaning in life and psychological well-being? So that's the question we are having. And then we have the data before us. So I'll be just, you can say, selecting the data. This data is basically, you can say, about this data is basically about the uh, the meaning in life and well-being. So what I'll be doing is I'll be copying the data, and simultaneously I'll be moving you to the new share. This new share happens to be my empty, or you can say a fresh SPSS file. So I'm sharing this file with you. So this file is there. So here we move, and this file is there. So this is the file I'm sharing with you all. So let's have the file here. So here we have got the variable view. We are moving to data view. I'm pasting the values here. So the first set of values have come up. I'm moving back to the second set of values here, and then pasting the second set of values. So I've done that, and I'm coming back to my, okay, fine. So here it is. So these values we have got. And now when we have got the values, so we can move to the variable view. The first variable is basically talking about meaning of life. So I'll just write life. And the second one is well-being. So I'm writing well-being. So these two values I've written. So meaning of life, and you can have the, you can say the labels also. Meaning of life, meaning of life. And the second is maybe you can say psychological well-being. So that's there. Values need not be, you can say, mentioned here, because we know the measure in both the cases happens to be scale. So that's the measure we are having. So if you look at the data view, this is what the data view is before us now. So this data view is having all the values. Now, talking and moving to, can say, the analysis part and talking about Pearson correlation, you just click on analysis, click on correlate, and then move to bivariate. We are doing bivariate analysis right now, so I'm moving to bivariate. I click on that, and the moment I click, my, you can say, file will open. So this file has opened. Sorry, the box opens, and the box talks about meaning for life and psychological well-being. Now, in case of, you can say, correlation, we are considering both the variables as one which are influencing each other. So there's nothing called, you can say, independent or dependent variables being talked up here. And if you look at, you can say, the things over here, we have the Pearson, you can say, correlation coefficient being talked about. We'll simply, you can say, go with Pearson, and we are going for two-tailed. So we know that this relationship is, you can say, on both the sides. It can be, you can say, inverse. It can be, you can say, inverse basically means negative relationship, or it can be, you can say, the direct relationship, which also means the positive correlation is there. So working on that, I click on OK, and the moment I do it, I'm getting my answers in the output file, which I'm sharing with you now. So this is what the output file is, and we have the data here. So before, you can say, we talk about the interpretation of the answers in the output file, let's move back, and you can say, go for the analysis, sorry, the you can say, we have to go for resetting the things again, and then maybe you can say we can go for the syntax of this particular text. So maybe you can say, when we talk about correlations, so we first of all go to analyze, we go to correlate, we click on, you can say, bivariate here, and the moment you can say click on that, you have the box coming up, the bivariate correlation. We are selecting the two variables, that is meaning of life and psychological well-being. These two variables are having an influence on each other. So we are not saying that which is independent or dependent. So that's not being talked here. So both these are just merely variables. We are going for, you can say, quotient correlation coefficient with Pearson. And why so? It is coming by default because both these variables are in scale form. And this test of significance is two-tailed because this correlation can be either, you can say, inverse, which is also known as negative correlation, or it can be, you can say, direct, which is also known as positive correlation. So I'll click on OK. And the moment I click on OK, I'm getting the output, you can say, answers in my, you can say, my file. So twice I've done it, and therefore I've got two values there. And now let's look at one of them. This is the first one. So looking at the correlation here, quite easy to understand. We had two variables, meaning of life and psychological well-being. Now, Pearson correlation, when you're looking at, is talking about meaning of life in comparison to meaning of life. And it will be a perfect correlation because the same two values are, you can say, are perfectly matching. But when it comes to meaning of life and psychological well-being, the value of, you can say, Pearson correlation is, you can say, 0.531 with a significance of 0.003. It's highly significant. If you look at the bottom one, here we are talking about psychological well-being. This is corresponding to, you can say, again, a meaning of life. The same answer is coming, the same answer. And then maybe you can say when I'm saying psychological well-being, with psychological well-being, the answer is one. So we all know that we can take either of the, you can say, the two boxes, either this one or this one. The answer is same. And therefore, the answer that is coming up here is that the correlation between meaning of life and psychological well-being happens to be 0.531 with a significance of 0.003. So that's the answer. And this actually, you can say, is suggesting us that we have a very high, you can say, degree of a relationship, and that too, you can say, very positive relationship between the two variables. And the meaning of life has a positive influence on psychological well-being and vice versa. So that is what we are getting from this particular, you can say, correlation that we have conducted. Moving back, we'll be talking to the, you can say, the point we've done before. So I'll be just moving, you can say, to my original file, which was talking about the data, talking about the example, and we'll just move to our, you can say, part of analysis. So this is what we have done. So data we had got. So we are just moving to something called, you can say, we are just moving to something called the assumptions of the test here. So we have, you can say, the first assumption that both these variables, in case of, you can say, correlation, are, you can say, independent of observations between the participants. So maybe you can say scores for the participants should be independent of other participant scores. So means that if you can say of these 30 students, student one is there, and we are talking about her or his meaning of life and psychological, you can say, well-being, it's totally independent to student two or student three's, you can say, meaning of life and psychological well-being, and similarly for the rest of others. Bivariate normality basically means that the variables are normally distributed in the population, and we can have any value of one variable. The scores of the other variable should be normally distributed. So maybe you can say that for any value of a given variable, the other variable will have any value. Maybe you can say um, in terms of, you can say, it being normally distributed. So this type of, you can say, um, this type of, you can say, bivariate normality has to be, you can say, another assumption in our, you can say, conducting the this correlation test. Now the commands for, you can say, conducting a Pearson correlation in SPSS is something we have already done, you can say, when we were doing the question right now. And if you look at the interpretation of the results, so we have, you can say, the results can be interpreted by just looking at the p-value, the small p, which is talking about the significance. If the value is, you can say, less than equal to 0.05, we know we are accepting the alternate hypothesis, saying that rho is not equal to 0. And rho, we all know, is, you can say, representing or talking about, you can say, rho is basically talking about the correlation coefficient. So the population symbol of, you can say, correlation coefficient um, is 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 is, is mentioned by the value rho, which is similar to small p. It's a Greek alphabet. And then talking about the effect size. Now here, if you look at the effect size, we have been talking about Cohen's, you can say, Cohen's, you can say, way of considering, you can say, effect size. So for small r, that is correlation coefficient, he has proposed three values. The values are, you can say, between +1 or -1 for you can say it's plus one or minus one or near to it for you can say for any for the you can say Pearson correlation value is you can say plus minus 0.1 or near to it. We call it very small you can say effect size. If it is plus minus 0.3, we call it medium you can say effect size. If it is you can say near to 0.0, it's near to you can say plus minus 0.5, we call it a large effect size. And since in our case here the value corresponds to 0.549, we know the effect size is quite large. So that's the case here. And how are we going to like write the result? So the things are you can say mentioned in the last that the results are to be mentioned this way, that there's a significant positive relationship between meaning in life and psychological well-being. So R within brackets 28. 28 is basically degree of freedom, n minus 2. So sorry, n minus 2, we have got 30 you can say students who participated in the study, and two variables are there. One is well-being, meaning of life, and the second is you can say psychological well-being. So n minus 2 is 28, and the p-value was you can say coming to 0.5 something. So that is what we have mentioned over there. And small p, or that is significance, is less than you can say 0.05. It is actually you can say 0.003. So therefore I've mentioned it. Small p is less than 0.05. So with this we got the answer. So we have assumed that there we have you can say got the answer that you can say meaning of life uh, and psychological well-being are strongly correlated. So that's the answer we've got. Effect size is again large and significance value is 0.003. So that's the answer here. So this was about, you can say, Pearson correlation. I'll be supporting this particular, you can say, video of mine with the video on, you can say, the exercise, and later on you can exercise, you can say one, which will be, you can say, done in the session also. And simultaneously, you can say for the assignment, question 2 and 3, which we are always having. So that video will also be there as a solution video for you. So thank you.